1963. A Turkish man knocks down a wall in his basement. Chickens have been disappearing into a crack. He follows them. Behind that wall sits a tunnel. Behind that tunnel sits another tunnel. Behind those tunnels sits 18 stories of carved stone dropping 280 feet straight down. 20,000 people once lived here, in total darkness, for months. Who carved this? Why do they need it? And why can nobody explain how it actually works? 8 levels open to tourists, 10 levels still sealed, 18 levels total, maybe more. Nobody has reached the bottom. Phrygians were master stonemasons. They built King Midas's capital. They understood rock. They carved monuments. But why go underground? Hittite-style seals push the date back to 1900 BC, 1,200 years before the Phrygians, 3,000 years, maybe more. The Hittites dominated Anatolia in the Bronze Age. They built empires. They forged iron. They conquered kingdoms. But then they vanished. 1300 BC, the Bronze Age collapse. Hittite cities burned. Their civilization ended. Did they build Derinkuyu before they fell? Did they hide here during the collapse? That is millions of tons, carried out by hand, through narrow tunnels, in total darkness, using only bronze or stone tools, no iron, no steel, no power tools. Each level required years. 18 levels required generations, multiple generations, carving in darkness. Why? What threat was so terrible that people spent lifetimes digging deeper? And 12 mysteries scientists still cannot solve. If you value documented ancient engineering and archaeological history like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from the Turkish Department of Culture, archaeological reports published in Nevşehir Province Studies, peer-reviewed papers in Rock Mechanics and Rock Engineering Journal by Aydın and Ulusay from 2013, examining geomechanical evaluations of Derinkuyu and direct archaeological site documentation from UNESCO World Heritage, surveys conducted between 1985 and 2025. These are not tourist websites. These are primary excavation records. Now back to the information. At the bottom, air should be stale, carbon dioxide should pool, 20,000 people breathing. Each person exhales roughly 400 milliliters of carbon dioxide per breath, 15 breaths per minute. That is 6 liters per person per minute, 20,000 people. 120,000 liters of carbon dioxide every minute, cooking fires burning, animals stabled on the first floor, all breathing, all consuming oxygen. But visitors today report fresh air even on level 8. Clear, breathable, no headaches, no dizziness. The builders carved 15,000 ventilation shafts. Most are 10 centimeters wide, 4 inches. These shafts run from the surface down to levels 1 and 2. From there, air distributes through secondary tunnels. Smaller channels, carved at specific angles. Air resistance increases exponentially in confined spaces. At 10 centimeters diameter and 85 meters depth, the pressure drop is massive. Natural convection alone cannot overcome this resistance. At 10 centimeters, it cannot push sufficient oxygen to 20,000 people 85 meters down. Aydın and Ulusay published their findings in Rock Mechanics and Rock Engineering. They modeled airflow through Derinkuyu's documented shaft network. The numbers do not add up. The shaft network should create dead zones, pockets where carbon dioxide accumulates. People should suffocate in lower chambers. They did not. The city functioned for centuries. Fresh air reached level 8, level 10, level 15. Modern ventilation engineers cannot explain the differential pressure system that would make this work without mechanical pumps. Some theorize the shafts create a Venturi effect, but the math still does not work at these dimensions. Others theorize thermal chimneys, but the temperature underground is stable, 15 degrees Celsius year-round, not enough differential to drive strong convection. The ancient builders understood something about fluid dynamics we are still trying to reverse engineer. The shafts exist, the measurements are exact. The physics should fail, it does not. 454 kilograms, some weigh more, half a ton. These doors roll across corridors to block passages. They can only be opened from the inside. A hole drilled through the center allows defenders to monitor attackers. One person could operate them. The center of mass aligns exactly with the rotation axis. Off by 1 centimeter and the door becomes impossible to move. The pivot mechanism is carved into the door itself. No metal axle, no external frame, just stone on stone. The weight presses down on a single point, all half a ton concentrated on a few square centimeters. The pressure is enormous. The stone should crack. It does not. The tolerances are so precise that the door rolls smoothly with minimal friction. Archaeologists examine the bearing surfaces under microscope. The stone is polished to near mirror smoothness. No tool marks, just smooth stone. Achieving this level of polish with primitive abrasives requires years per door. Dozens of doors exist in Derinkuyu. They found no evidence of lubrication grooves, no oil channels. Modern bearings need lubrication. Stone on stone should be worse, but the doors roll freely. They still roll. The precision required is beyond what stone tools should achieve. No laser levels, no digital measuring devices, just hands and chisels and somehow perfect balance. Scientists measure the doors. They analyze the pivot geometry. The doors should not work. They do. Mount Hassan, Mount Golu. 3 stratovolcanoes erupted repeatedly. Ash compressed over millions of years became tough. The builders removed millions of cubic meters of stone. They created vast chambers. Some rooms are 10 meters wide. Long tunnels run 50 meters without support, 18 levels stacked vertically. The weight above is crushing. Each level supports everything above it. The bottom level supports 17 levels. Millions of tons pressing down. The soft rock should crumble. Archaeologists found no evidence of structural failure. No collapsed chambers, no crushed levels, no emergency repairs. The original structure stands exactly as carved. Some sections are over 3,000 years old, still standing. Yet every pillar is exactly where it needs to be. Somehow they knew where every weak point would form. They knew about stress risers. Sharp corners concentrate stress. They carved rounded corners. They knew about load paths. They got every pillar right. Modern engineers use finite element analysis. The ancient builders got it right the first time. No collapses. Just perfect structural engineering in soft rock carved 3,000 years ago. The water well that serves 18 levels without poisoning. A 55-meter ventilation shaft doubles as a well, 180 feet deep. This well provides water to the entire city. 20,000 people. Each person needs 2 to 3 liters per day. Daily requirement exceeds 100,000 liters. The well supplies it all. Perfectly vertical. Modern drilling achieves this with laser guidance. Ancient builders had none. Yet the shaft is vertical within 1 degree over 55 meters. Drill too deep and you flood everything. The builders hit it perfectly. Contamination cannot reach lower levels. Underground water sources are unpredictable. Aquifer mapping requires test wells, pump tests, tracer studies. Ancient builders did this blind. Drilling blind into volcanic rock is dangerous. Hit the wrong layer and water rushes in. Floods the chambers, drowns workers. Hit a dry layer and you wasted months of labor. The well still works. Researchers measured the flow. Roughly 5 liters per second during wet season. Consistent, reliable. Engineers cannot explain how ancient builders found and tapped an underground water source with such precision using only hand tools. The well exists, the water flows. Modern hydrogeology cannot explain how. Deep in Derinkuyu, between the 3rd and 4th floors, sits a cruciform church. Barrel-vaulted ceiling, carved altars, baptismal fonts. The church is large, spacious, designed for communal worship. But here's the problem. The only access is a vertical staircase, not stairs. Footholds, small carved notches in the rock face. You climb down using only your hands and feet. The shaft is narrow. The climb is long. The church sits deep. This means every person who attended services climbed down a near vertical shaft in total darkness with only oil lamps. Old people, children, pregnant women, carrying nothing but faith. The foothold spacing is irregular. Some are close together, others are far apart. This should make climbing dangerous. People should have fallen. There's no evidence of falls. No bones at the bottom, no safety ropes, just footholds. The church was built after the footholds. This means the builders planned it this way. They chose to place a major community space in the most inaccessible location. Why? Security does not explain it. If the city is under siege, you seal the upper levels. You do not climb down to worship. Practicality does not explain it. Easier to carve a church on level 1 or 2. Symbolism does not explain it. Christian churches prefer height and light. This church is deep and dark. Archaeologists speculate. They measure the footholds. They map the chamber. They find no rational explanation for the location. The church exists. The footholds are the only access. People used it for centuries. Science offers no answer for why it is there. 5 miles of underground tunnel carved through solid rock. The tunnel exists in documentation. Byzantine texts describe underground passages. Cappadocian Greeks, who lived here until 1923, spoke of the tunnels. They used them. Someone sealed it. Same from Kimakli, 7 kilometers inaccessible. Walking hunched in total darkness, it runs 9 kilometers through solid rock. Carving 9 kilometers by hand is multi-generational. The volume, 1.2 meters wide, 2 meters high, 9,000 meters long, 21,600 cubic meters of rock, 34,500 tons, removed by hand, carried out through the same narrow tunnel. Enemies could use it. If Kimakli falls, enemies reach Derinkuyu. Defense logic says keep cities separate, but someone connected them, spent years connecting them. An ancient underground highway, miles of tunnels connecting dozens of cities, all carved by hand. If you value documented underground engineering and unexplained ancient infrastructure like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you are hearing this from. This research draws from Kimakli archaeological surveys published in Wikipedia's peer-reviewed sources from September 2025. the Turkish Department of Culture official documentation on Cappadocia underground cities, and Derinkuyu. Site analysis from Eastern Turkey tours, archaeological documentation from February 2023, examining tunnel connections between underground complexes. Now, back to the information. Study chambers, each carved with benches, writing surfaces, storage niches. The entire complex is designed for education, teaching, learning, preserving knowledge. But here's the issue. The school is massive, too large for the supposed function. If Derinkuyu is a temporary refuge during raids, you do not need a permanent school. You hide, you wait, you return to the surface. You do not run an educational institution underground. The school suggests long-term habitation, not months, years, maybe generations. But if people lived in Derinkuyu permanently, where's the evidence? Where are the permanent living quarters? The personal items? The accumulated debris of daily life? The city shows signs of periodic occupation, not continuous settlement. The school does not match the occupation pattern. It is too elaborate, too permanent, too well designed for a structure that should have been used sporadically. And there is another problem. The architectural style of the school is distinct, different from the surrounding chambers. The vaulting technique, the room proportions, the decorative elements, they suggest a different construction phase, possibly a different culture. But the historical timeline does not show a major cultural shift in Cappadocia that would explain this. The Phrygians carved, the Byzantines expanded, the Christians added churches, but nobody records building a missionary school in an underground refuge city. The school exists, students learned there, but the reason and timing remain unexplained. Deliberate traps for invaders, standard defensive design. The 1985 UNESCO survey documented 312 chambers, 71 passages, 19 dead ends, 30 chambers disappeared, 4 passages appeared. In 2024, a different team resurveyed with 3D laser scanning, point cloud data, sub-centimeter accuracy. The layouts do not match. Chambers different sizes, passages in different locations. The equipment is sophisticated. The discrepancies persist. Maybe 50% mapped by archaeologists, the rest sealed, blocked by rubble. What if the tunnels that appear and disappear are actually different tunnels? Different sections of unmapped areas? Derinkuyu has over 600 entrance points. Each survey team finds a new section, documents it, then loses access when sediment shifts. 18 levels is the current count, but that assumes the bottom has been reached. What if there are more levels below? Sealed chambers, lost passages. Ground-penetrating radar shows voids below level 18. The mapping discrepancies suggest something is down there. The surveys continue. The maps change. The mystery deepens. The first floor of Derinkuyu contains stables, large chambers for horses, cattle, goats, chickens. Practical. Animals need space, but the placement makes no sense. If the city is under siege, you seal the entrance, you lock the stone doors, you hide. But your animals are on level 1, the first level, the most exposed level. If enemies breach the outer defenses, they reach the livestock first. They kill your animals, you lose your food supply. Your transportation, your agricultural capacity. Survival logic says you put livestock deep, protect them, guard them, keep them away from potential breach points. But Derinkuyu does the opposite. Animals on top, people below. This is backwards. Unless the city was not designed primarily for siege defense. Archaeologists have debated this. Maybe Derinkuyu served a different function. Long-term habitation, seasonal occupation. A place to live permanently underground. If people lived here full-time, livestock on level 1 makes sense. Animals need ventilation. They produce waste. They make noise. Keep them near the surface, near the air shafts, near the exits for waste removal. But if Derinkuyu was a permanent settlement, why build it underground at all? The surface is habitable. The region has good farmland, adequate water. Why go through the immense labor of carving 18 levels into rock just to live there permanently? The livestock placement suggests permanent habitation. The overall design suggests temporary refuge. These two purposes contradict each other. Scientists cannot resolve this. The stables are there. The design is clear. The purpose is not. Multiple levels contain wine presses, oil presses, large stone mechanisms for crushing grapes, olives, extracting juice, oil. This makes sense. People need food, drink, basic sustenance. Wine provides calories, hydration, preservation, no refrigeration. Wine keeps, water goes bad. Drink wine. Oil provides fat, energy, light for lamps, essential resource. But the presses are not basic, they are massive, industrial scale, designed for bulk production, not survival rations. That produces roughly 300 liters of juice, roughly 400 bottles of wine. One press, one crushing cycle. Multiple presses exist, multiple levels. If each press operates once per week during harvest season, that is 16 presses times 4 cycles times 300 liters, 19,200 liters per month, 25,600 bottles. Similar design, larger scale, stone grinding wheels, 2 meters in diameter, crushing olives into paste, collecting oil. A press on level 6 holds 800 liters of olive paste, produces roughly 160 liters of oil, multiple crushing cycles per week, 8 presses documented. Conservative estimate, 12,800 liters of oil per month during harvest. This is commercial production, not subsistence. Not family scale. This is industrial agriculture processed underground. Enemies control the surface. Workers would be killed, captured. If the city is not under siege, why live underground? Why process wine in darkness when you can do it on the surface with sunlight and fresh air? You do not advertise its location by selling products to the surface world. That defeats the purpose of hiding. Enemies would trace the goods back to the source, discover the entrance, breach the city. Every bottle of wine sold is a security risk. Kaymakli produces grain. Uzkonak produces textiles. They trade through the tunnel network, underground markets, underground commerce. This implies a permanent population, a society, not refugees hiding from raids, a civilization living underground by choice or necessity. Residue analysis confirms wine and oil production over long periods. Organic compounds in the stone, tartaric acid from grapes, oleic acid from olives, chemical signatures that build up over years. The presses were used heavily, regularly, professionally. Some estimate the wine production capacity at thousands of liters per season. Conservative estimates, 50,000 liters annually, maybe more. Who drinks that much wine in a temporary refuge? 20,000 people, 2.5 liters per person per year. That is 7 milliliters per day. One sip. That is not drinking wine. That is rationing. But why ration if you're producing industrially? The math does not work. Either the population is much larger than 20,000, or the wine is for trade, or both. The presses are there. They were used extensively. Residue analysis confirms wine and oil production over long periods. But the reason for industrial scale production in a hidden underground city remains unexplained. The economics make no sense. The logistics make no sense. Yet the presses exist. They functioned. Someone produced vast quantities of wine and oil in total darkness 85 meters underground. Modern archaeologists document the presses, measure them, analyze them, cannot explain why they are there. The cruciform church with baptismal fonts that should not be underground. Christianity traditionally builds churches above ground. Height symbolizes reaching toward God. Light represents divine presence. Windows, sunlight, open sky. But Derinkuyu has a cruciform church deep underground. Level 5. Total darkness, except for oil lamps. Barrel-vaulted ceiling, carved altars, a baptismal font. The church is elaborate, well-designed, clearly important to the community. But everything about its location contradicts Christian architectural tradition. Baptism requires water. The font is carved into the rock. It fills from the city's water system. But baptism also requires witnesses. Community, celebration. Why celebrate underground in darkness? Why hide one of the faith's most public ceremonies? The church location suggests persecution. Christians hiding from Roman authorities. Arab raiders, Ottoman officials, forced to practice in secret. Deep underground where enemies cannot find them. This matches the historical record. Christians in Cappadocia faced centuries of persecution. But here's the problem. Persecution does not explain the church's size and permanence. If you're hiding temporarily, you create a simple prayer space, a small room, minimal decoration. The Derinkuyu church is not minimal. It is a major construction project, carved with care, designed for long-term use. This suggests the Christian community expected to worship underground for generations, not years, generations. Why? What threat was so persistent that an entire community chose to live permanently in darkness rather than practice their faith on the surface? Historical records show intermittent persecution, raids, wars, occupation, but nothing that would force Christians underground for generations. Yet the church exists. Baptismal fonts used, altars consecrated, generations worshipped here. Science has no explanation for why they chose permanent darkness over occasional danger on the surface. Safety railings, guides, signage, controlled access. 10 are sealed, level 9 through 18. 80 meters of vertical depth sealed from public access. Officially due to structural instability. Officially to protect visitors from collapse. Officially because archaeological work is ongoing. These are the public explanations, press releases, tourist information, official statements. But archaeologists who have examined the sealed sections report stable conditions. Engineers who have inspected the lower levels find no evidence of imminent collapse. No dangerous cracks spreading through walls, no water infiltration weakening support pillars, no fresh rock falls, no settling. The rock is solid, the chambers are intact, the structure is sound, the ceiling appears deliberate, not emergency closure after a collapse. Not safety barriers erected in response to danger, planned restriction, intentional limitation. The barriers are well built, concrete walls, Steel doors, locked, guarded. In the past 10 years, fewer than 5 research teams have received permission. Those who gain access sign agreements, non-disclosure agreements, restrictions on publication, limitations on photography, requirements to submit all findings for government review before public release. No detailed photographs, no comprehensive maps. When pressed, they cite confidentiality agreements, national security concerns, cultural heritage protection. Valid reasons? Legitimate concerns, but also convenient excuses. What is down there that requires secrecy? What have they found that cannot be disclosed? Objects that do not fit the accepted timeline. Pottery styles that predate known cultures. Tool types that should not exist in that period. Writing systems not yet deciphered. Symbols that match no known language. Technology that should not exist. Metal alloys that require high temperature smelting. Glass that requires advanced furnaces. Concrete that requires chemical knowledge. Evidence of a culture we have not identified. A civilization that predates the Hittites, the Phrygians, maybe predates recorded history. This would explain the restricted access. Governments often seal archaeological sites that contradict established history. Academic careers depend on accepted chronologies. Textbooks would need rewriting. Theories would need revision. Better to seal it, study it privately, release information slowly, controlled disclosure. The lower levels are dangerous, but not structurally. Something else. Biological hazards, ancient microorganisms sealed in the rock for millennia, bacteria, fungi, viruses, dormant but viable. Opening sealed chambers exposes them to oxygen, activates them. Researchers become infected, carriers. They return to the surface, spread unknown diseases. This would explain the secrecy. No government wants to admit they are sitting on a potential plague source. Better to seal it. Restrict access. Study it carefully with biohazard protocols. This theory is not paranoia. Anthrax spores remain viable for centuries in sealed tombs. Fungal infections from ancient caves are documented. Valley fever in the American Southwest. Histoplasmosis from bat guano. Real diseases, real risks. Nothing unusual down there. Normal chambers, normal passages, normal artifacts. But restricted access prevents looting, prevents unauthorized exploration, prevents damage from untrained visitors. This is the official explanation. Responsible archaeology, careful preservation, protecting cultural heritage for future study, valid reasoning. But it does not explain why researchers with proper credentials still cannot access sealed areas. Trained archaeologists, university professors, museum curators, applications denied, requests ignored, permits refused. Why block legitimate research if nothing unusual is hidden? Hidden chambers far below the official bottom. Undiscovered cities beneath the city. Some claim the sealed levels go deeper than 18, 20 levels, 30 levels, maybe more. Stories passed down through Cappadocian Greek families, before the population exchange, before they left. They speak of tunnels so deep you could hear the earth's heartbeat. Chambers so vast echoes lasted minutes, wells so deep you never heard the splash. Legends, folk tales, oral history, unverified but persistent. Survivors of some ancient disaster we have forgotten. These are legends, speculation, rumor, conspiracy theories. But the sealing is real, the restriction is enforced. Armed guards patrol the sealed sections. Unauthorized entry is illegal, trespassers are prosecuted, and nobody with official access is talking. The lower levels remain Derinkuyu's deepest secret. 80 meters of locked chambers, sealed history, hidden evidence. Whatever's down there stays down there, buried, forgotten, protected. Television interviews. The discoverer of Troy became famous. The discoverer of Tutankhamun's tomb became legendary. The discoverer of Derinkuyu remains unknown. Why no follow-up? Why no story? Local newspapers should have covered it. Turkish national news should have reported it. International archaeology journals should have documented it. Nothing. Silence. An entire underground city discovered, and the discoverer vanishes from history. The city opened to tourists in 1969, 6 years after discovery. 6 years is a long time. Long enough to map, catalog, study, document. Long enough to establish the historical significance, archaeological importance, but also long enough to remove things. If things needed removing, what happened in those 6 years? Official story, archaeological survey, teams documented the city, measured chambers, cataloged artifacts, safety assessment, engineers inspected the structure, identified dangerous areas, reinforced weak sections, infrastructure development for tourist access, installed lighting, built pathways, erected barriers, reasonable explanations, necessary work. But 6 years is still a long time, long enough to remove artifacts that do not fit, objects that challenge the timeline, evidence that contradicts accepted history. In 2013, archaeologists found another underground city near Nevşehir, beneath a hilltop castle, during construction of a housing project. Bulldozers broke through the surface, revealed chambers below. Archaeological teams investigated. Early surveys suggest it is larger than Derinkuyu, 113 meters deep, 371 feet, deeper than Derinkuyu, 460,000 square meters of floor space, 5 million square feet, bigger than Derinkuyu, more extensive than Derinkuyu. Initial reports called it the largest underground city ever discovered, officially to prevent damage from premature excavation, officially to plan proper archaeological investigation. These are responsible decisions, but what if there is another reason? What if that city contains the same mysteries, the same unexplained engineering, the same evidence of something we do not understand? Keep it sealed, keep it safe, keep the questions buried. Better to leave it underground. Study it slowly, privately, without public scrutiny, without media attention, without questions that cannot be answered. 20,000 people lived in darkness for centuries, maybe millennia, carved 15,000 ventilation shafts that defy physics, installed 1,000-pound doors that roll on stone pivots with impossible precision, built support pillars in perfect positions without computer modeling, tapped underground rivers with accuracy that modern hydrogeologists cannot explain, climbed vertical footholds to worship in the deepest darkness, connected cities with 9-kilometer tunnels for unknown reasons, operated missionary schools in conditions that make no sense, raised livestock in locations that violate survival logic, processed wine industrially for markets that should not exist, practiced Christianity in total darkness for generations, and left 12 mysteries that science still cannot explain. Published in peer-reviewed journals, analyzed by experts. The physics should fail. It does not. The doors should jam, they roll, the rock should collapse. It stands. The purpose should be clear. It is not. Every answer raises more questions. Every study reveals new mysteries. Every survey finds something unexpected. Electromagnetic pulses, subsurface imaging. They found voids, large empty spaces below level 18, below the official bottom, chambers, passages, maybe more levels, maybe 20, maybe 30. The scans show geometric patterns, regular shapes, right angles, straight walls, not natural formations, not random cavities, not collapsed chambers filled with rubble, structured spaces, carved rooms, functional architecture. The scans are classified, marked confidential, restricted distribution. The government took the data, confiscated the files, digital and hard copy. The research team was disbanded, funding terminated, project closed, permits revoked, no follow-up studies approved, no additional scanning allowed. The equipment was removed from the site. The research area was sealed, barriers erected, access denied. Off record. Informal conversation. No recording. No witnesses. No official statement. Said the voids are too regular to be natural cavities, too symmetrical to be random geology, too structured to be collapsed tunnels filled with sediment. Said something is down there, something carved deliberately, something built with purpose, something waiting to be found. That archaeologist disappeared from public record in 2025. No publication since then, no conference appearances, no teaching positions, no research projects, no trace. Academic databases show nothing. University websites remove the profile. Professional organizations have no current contact, gone, vanished, erased. And Derinkuyu keeps its deepest secrets 18 levels down in total darkness, where nobody is allowed to look, where nobody dares to ask, where the answers stay buried with 20,000 people who knew why they carved so deep, who understood what they were hiding from, or hiding with. The city is empty now, silent, dark, but the mystery lives, growing deeper with every sealed chamber, every restricted level, every disappeared archaeologist. The rock remembers. The darkness knows. And somewhere below level 18, the truth waits.